Representative action.
The Belgian IYCW saw the problem of welcoming newcomers to work. They informed the national trade union movement of the problem and shop committees within the different workshops. The IYCW and the trade union movement went to the other organisations in the community like Rotary Club, Chamber of Commerce, Employers Associations, and involved the Christian trade union movement in proposing a bill to Parliament. Involved the vanguard of socialist youth and the socialist youth clubs and alerted all to try and push the bill through. 2 years the bill was pushed through, and the minister for this particular department was an ex-YCW. Now that the bill has passed, it means that it has to be put into practice, and one of the ways they've done it is through posters being put up in all the different factories and the shop committees in those different places discussing the problem of the newcomers coming to work. The bill asks that a minimum time be given to the introduction of the new workers to their firm, which means a visit of the big firms, some knowledge of the firm and the work it does, and the union set up there. Great emphasis is given also to the technical knowledge which must be given to the younger workers, apprentices. Several months is given to the emphasis on this particular aspect.
One example of representative action from Ceylon, in which a representation wasn't made by the YCW to a higher authority, but was made the other way, was in the government in Ceylon was very aware and wanted to make the people aware of the need to grow food because of the famine that was coming. And the YCW participated in this action by visiting houses and getting all of the people, where possible, to not grow flowers in their garden, but to use their gardens for growing food, and thus play their part in making the effect of the famine less.
In our workshop, we decided the most important kind of representative action is where you get a young worker himself to do something in his own place of work rather than the movement doing something at a bigger level. For example, in Singapore, a leader heard a talk at a training day on trade unions and the rights of workers, and then he realised in his own factory these rights weren't given. And so he started talking to a few of the blokes about it, and then went back to his group to see if they could help him on what to do about it. And then he kept talking to the fellas at work until eventually he had a few of them who were with him, and they asked him to go to the boss for them, and he went along and battled for them a bit. And in our group we decided this is the most important kind of representative action, where you get someone to really do something in his own life.
Another example of this in Chile, where the YCW girl involved 5 other girls in looking at some of the difficulties in a particular workshop, textile mill. We were 300 girls were working. She had great difficulty, but eventually started a union in that workplace where the whole 300 girls eventually became members.
The workshop on representative action to Rome and the hierarchy, these points were made. The necessity of a dialogue between hierarchy and laity, as it is seen by the Church, a dialogue of speaking and listening. In the Constitution on the Church, stress is on brotherly relationship between clergy and laity, not a paternal relationship. Therefore, a mutual and brotherly relationship. Number 2, the role of the laity to reveal life and its problems to the bishops and priests. Contact with leaders and bishops, even of local leaders. Not only of life, but also of the opinion of lay leaders engaged in work of the Church. Respectfully to suggest about pastoral work of the Church, this will take time. It also applies to the local clergy, to deans, priest meetings, vicars general, advisors, religious superiors of sisters and brothers. If the laity is to take its place in the Church, not only to ask for priests and money for our movement, but also to inform, and not only of life, but of the opinions of life, of the young people. With Rome, it's easy to give reports in Rome. On the top level, there must be a possibility of dialogue between laity and the central government of the Church. Each bishop, when he goes to Rome, is a nobody. With other bishops in the council, he can say something. Therefore, the same is true of lay people. Possibly a secretariat ought to be formed among laity, not a congregation similar to the ones already set up. However, such a secretariat, because of its nature, would be removed from the daily life, and the laymen would lose their lay character. Simply a new name for capital. The International YCW has worked hard with me, Jack, and other total life apostolate movements, but there's a big fight ahead for a real lay senate.
On the point of the study of the worker character of the YCW, the big question is exactly what do we mean when we talk about it being a movement of young workers today? And secondly, how should the movement be adapting itself to fit the mentality of modern young workers? The decision made was to ask each national YCW to study this question over the next 4 years, and at the next council to produce some sort of result on it. The executive committee is going to be asked to give some points to guide the work of the national YCWs, and the main points would be these three. First, to ask each national YCW to think about who they think the movement should be responsible for in their own country. Secondly, how they think they should attract and how they should think they can reach these young workers and present the movement to them in a way that is attractive to them. And thirdly, to ask them to think about why they think they should be reaching those particular people. As a bit of a start of the national YCWs, they're going to print the document that was used as a basis, which was very incomplete, together with the suggestions that were made in the general sessions and also the reports from the workshops.
Some points on finance. In Brazil, each YCW member contributes the amount of 1 hour's work per month. That is the amount they give for their subscriptions, which equals 1 hour's work.
Solidarity Fund, emphasis on the need to stress in the country that is giving a fair bit, example Australia and Ellen Mills, to show them also what the Indian young workers are doing for Ellen, so that it's seen as a common project that is being financed by two YCWs rather than by one that's a little bit better off than the other. Some good examples of education on finance in countries that receive help from the Solidarity Fund were in Thailand, Cambodia and Dahomey. Also a very good example from Holland on what is done on International Solidarity Fund on education, and one from France.
In my workshop I was reminded that the International Day ought to be celebrated on the 25th of August, the date of the foundation of the International YCW. However, in Ceylon it's celebrated on Pentecost Sunday, which seems to be very appropriate.
In Holland, the International Day is the Feast of the Epiphany, and there they have it as part of an international week. In France, the YCW asks every member to give 1 hour of their salary towards the International Solidarity Fund, and they do this because they reckon that the whole of life should be building up YCW and should be emphasising international and not just doing it in a special day or a special week.
Raised the question that the treasurers should be competent in their particular job, and Joseph Webber agreed with this, but also made the point that the person should be also a member who knows the YCW well, so that he can educate the members of the YCW as to the reasons why they pay subscriptions and the general finance of the movement.
Hi everyone, this is Helen.